we use the term Project of Survival in reference to the survival programs of the Black Panther Party, welfare rights organizers, and others. The name of the report, A Matter of Survival, is actually a reference to Johnny Tillman, who was a poor Black woman and leader in the welfare rights movement, who recognized that survival organizing, that meeting the unmet needs of people was a core element of bringing those people into political organizing. Even if those projects couldn't address all of our needs perfectly, they were a way to show how our needs could actually be met if only society was organized to do so. And this is why the Panthers called them Projects of Survival Pending Revolution. And so the model that we put out has two dimensions to it to capture these two dynamics. The first, which we call these kind of defining characteristics, is just what the day-to-day work looks like of actually meeting basic needs. This is the foundation upon which anything else becomes possible. And then the second dimension kind of offers these principles about how to build on that foundation, to politicize that activity, to orient it towards long-term movement building. And these were all elements that came up through our research, but also looking at past ways that movements and political organizers have engaged in Project of Survival towards real significant social change. And I just wanted to be really clear that this model, this framework, isn't intended to kind of minimize or critique or to say that if something doesn't have all of these elements, that it's not good enough, but to truly appreciate the full extent and possibility of building these projects based on activities that people are already engaged in. If people are doing something, meeting some kind of need directly, consistently for free with no strings attached, can we then give it some shape, some identity as a form of protest and resistance? Can we see it in that form? And then apply these principles around abundance, around political education, around believing in human decency and using arts and culture strategically? Can we apply those to move it move that activity towards even more powerful long-term organizing? So this is where our second set of speakers come in, who in each of their longstanding efforts to organize people, organize their communities, are carrying out some or all of this model. So we can take down the slide, and I'll bring on our speakers. I think first we're going to be hearing from Kenya Alcocer, a founder of Unión de Vecinos and the Los Angeles Tenants Unit, LA Tenants Union, a brilliant organizer and educator from Los Angeles. Then she will be followed by Nijmi Zakia Zurinko, a working class Black and Indigenous organizer and strategist for over 25 years in Pennsylvania, and co-founder of Put People First Pennsylvania, a statewide member-led organization demanding healthcare as a human right. And we also have Kaya Chatterjee, author, organizer, director of Free DC, which is organizing ward by ward in our nation's capital, and the former executive director of US Climate Action Network. We also have Dom Kelly, co-founder and president of New Disabled South, who has been organizing in the South since 2009 and is committed to building a progressive future for disabled people. We also have Sean Sebastian, director of organizing at ruralorganizing.org, working at the intersection of rural organizing and policy, and in particular, how rural communities can stand up to threats of local forms of authoritarianism. We have Keith Bullard, an organizer with the Union for Southern Service Workers, which formed in 2022, a union built by and for low-wage workers across the service industry in the South. And then finally, we have Aaron Scott, a second-generation rural preacher, a third-generation organizer, and currently the first gender justice officer of the Episcopal Church and co-founder of Chaplains on the Harbor in Grays Harbor, Washington. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and I will invite Kenya to start us off.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. We are very grateful to be a part of this process because I think that it also gives us the opportunity to meet others who are doing similar work to what Unión de Vecinos is doing. So we're an organization here in Boyle Heights and East Los Angeles. We are one local out of the Los Angeles Tenants Union, which has 13 locals across the city. And for us, projects of survival need to be centered at the needs of community. but that community has to be at the center of organizing those projects of survival. They are the ones that know what they need, and they also are the ones that understand how to get those needs. And I think for us, it's very important to think about it in that way, because otherwise we fall into this process of where we're just providing services, and people are not getting politicized into what they need and who is creating the that need for them. And so through the pandemic, we were the first union to call for a rent strike on April 1st, because we saw the immediate need that our members were not going to be able to pay rent. And now during the fires, we were also the first ones in the front lines fighting back against displacement, helping those that were being displaced by the fires to actually seek refuge, and clearing path literally for the fire departments and for communities to actually survive this. So for us, it's very important and key to understand that our community has the ability of self-determination and has the tools to really tackle any issue and any problem by solving it themselves and not just waiting for government to do that for us. So right now, just a quick example, we've been living in very horrible conditions because our landlords refuse to do repairs. We are not doing that anymore. So we're launching our repair and deduct campaign, where tenants are taking it into themselves and fixing their units and making their house livable and healthy for themselves. And the way that we do it is by talking to community members who are plumbers, electricians, construction workers that already live in these conditions and are also tired of living in these conditions, and will support this process by donating and helping out with labor. And I think that that's something that's very important for us, because that means that we already have a lot of these resources within our communities. We just need to empower them and give them the potential to really change the conditions of our communities. We have to be able to do this. And again, any issue that the community has, they have to come up with their own solutions. We are a primarily immigrant community. We are coming up with our own networks of rapid response. We are women who have children, so we do come up with ideas of how to take care of our children, provide programming during the summer for them, figuring out like what are the things that we need to do. We do it for ourselves. And that also makes us show to the city that it's not that they cannot do it, it's because they don't have the political power to do it. And that is the reason why we create these projects of survival, because it is important for them to see that if we can do it without any resources, that means that they can do it much better with better resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenya. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you all tonight. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone here for everything that you do. I know everyone here is working extremely hard and maybe doesn't always get the thanks that you deserve. So I want to be someone who just says thank you, thank you, thank you so much for all that you do. My name is Nijmi Zakia Zarinko, calling in from Susquehannock lands in central Pennsylvania. And tonight I'm speaking from the vantage point of organizing something called the Medicaid Cutoffs Organizing Drive, which began in early 2023 under what we call the Great Medicaid Purge, and some others call the Unwinding, which occurred under the Biden administration, which resulted in one of the largest losses of healthcare in this country's history, with 25 million people being cut from Medicaid. These attacks are continuing and deepening under the Trump administration. This organizing drive is politically independent and is happening with the National Nonviolent Medicaid Army and the National Union of the Homeless together in more than 15 states across this country. And we would like to invite all of you to get involved, because we are all impacted by this crisis and we need to unite with each other. Projects of survival have political goals. They are a form of protest and political education. They have a goal of base building and leadership development, in addition to meeting our needs. In understanding that our rights come from struggle and that change comes from below, not from above, we set ourselves the task of organizing the 140 million people in this country today who are poor or one healthcare or housing emergency away from poverty. We approach projects of survival not through the lens of charity, but coming together for support, survival, and strategy. These projects arise out of the necessity of something that Dr. King called the torturous work of building permanently organized communities in thousands of places across this country. Our people's clinics, free health clinics, educate people about their healthcare rights, provide health screenings, ask agitating questions like, what would your life be like if healthcare was a human right? Sign people up for Medicaid, and support people to appeal Medicaid cutoffs. We're not just here to help others, but to save ourselves. We still face great mental fortresses in understanding that the poor and dispossessed are capable of organization and leadership. Psalm 118, verse 22 says, "The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." Not only must we refuse to idolize, believe in, and respect those who exploit, who pollute, who make war, and those politicians from both parties who carry out the will of capital in every situation, but we must also value, admire, and develop as leaders the people who have learned to make a way out of no way, who have endured incredible loss, yet find a way to keep going, who have very little but continuously give. Dr. Huey P. Newton said, "To fail to combat this disease is to submit to genocide. To battle it is survival." All these programs satisfy the deep needs of the community, but they are not solutions to our problems. That is why we call them survival programs, meaning survival pending revolution. We say that the survival program is like the survival kit of a sailor stranded on a raft. It helps him to sustain himself until he can get completely out of that situation. So the survival programs are no more answers or solutions, but they will help us to organize the community around a true analysis and understanding of their situation. When consciousness and understanding is raised to a high level, then the community will seize the time and deliver themselves from the boot of their oppressors. Thank you.
Thank you, Nijmi. I think Kaya, yep.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. So much love for everyone who's spoken today, and to Kairos for this report that's so important. My name is Kaya Chatterjee. I'm the executive director of Free DC, and we are building a infrastructure in DC for non-cooperation with this authoritarian regime. And also to take care of our needs as community members. I think people probably know that DC does not have equal representation under the law. The civil rights gains of the 60s and 70s brought us something that's called home rule. That does not, in fact, give us equal representation under the law, and even that now is under threat. And so what we have seen in DC is, obviously, we've seen on the news and everyone has seen federal buildings occupied, but we are at a point where it's just building after building. It's just our bodies that are preventing them from being taken over by authoritarians. We're also seeing every group that's being attacked in the country is being attacked in a more acute way in DC because we don't have the ability to protect ourselves, because we don't belong to a state and we don't have representation. And so we've seen attacks on our ability to use our own local dollars for our schools, for example, that passed in the most recent continuing resolution. We pushed back in a very big way. We had 700 school children out, and we occupied every Senate office at once. And we did get a small fix in the Senate that now needs to pass the House. And that's what you can do through infrastructure. We are organizing neighborhood by neighborhood, and we are giving people the tools they need to not cooperate. Because we know that they are coming after us. They have already come after us. They've come up after, our trans community, our migrant community, our houseless community, our disabled community. We are experiencing it in a way that's first and worst, and we're really happy to be building this infrastructure for non-cooperation, and looking forward to working with everyone here in solidarity as we move forward. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dom Kelly. I'm so honored, first of all, to be here with you with one of my favorite orgs. I use he, they pronouns. I'm joining from Atlanta, Georgia on Muskogee Creek land. I founded and lead an organization called New Disabled South. In my organization's 14 state work in the South, in my national organizing and advocacy, and in my any global work I've done around disability justice and health equity, I've seen one through line, and that is that disabled people like myself, and I'd imagine a number of you on this call as well, are consistently dehumanized and deemed to be acceptable collateral. That unfortunately has not changed between presidential administrations, in fact, ramped up through the Biden administration's abandonment of disabled folks during this ongoing pandemic, his funding of genocide and mass disablement in Gaza, and more. And now it's been actually exactly 2 months today of the Trump administration, and disabled folks have again been, and this time even more, in the crosshairs. Um, for those who maybe are not aware of all that's happened within the disability community, a few things. As first week, Trump blamed the tragic DC plane crash on DEI, and specifically the hiring of disabled people at the FAA, which actually led to a measurable increase in reports of discrimination and attacks on disabled people. 17 states across the country joined a lawsuit to get rid of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which ensures that disabled students can get their needs met in school, among like many other things, healthcare access, things like that. Um, States right now are trying to reverse the Olmstead decision that ensures disabled people can live in community rather than being institutionalized. We've already heard about tonight that Congress is trying to gut Medicaid. Over 10 million people with disabilities rely on Medicaid for healthcare. What else? The Department of Education is being dismantled, which leaves the education of disabled students in question. We've seen mask bans across the country, or attempts at mask bans across the country, even in so-called blue states. And actually, just last night, the Trump administration removed 11 pieces of guidance around the American with Disabilities Act enforcement from the DOJ website as a step toward, we believe, dismantling this landmark piece of disability legislation. And then every attack on trans folks, queer folks, Black folks, immigrant communities, any other marginalized community is an attack on the disability community, and vice versa, because disabled people are a part of every single community. Throughout this pandemic and long before, the disability community has survived through mutual aid. And I really love that Scott emphasized the need for mutual aid in this moment. And that is really what our organizing should be centered around. Interdependence is one of the most important principles of disability justice, and disabled folks have this joke that we pass the same $5 around from person to person. But that's because we've learned how to take care of each other. So in this moment, I hope that all of us can learn a lesson of survival from disabled folks who have had to create systems of mutual aid and care networks in order to survive generations of systemic oppression. My org, New Disabled South, is focusing on this and more this year. We're building on our mutual aid work that we did last year during the southern hurricanes. We're working to protect disabled immigrants, organize disabled workers. We're expanding our base in faith communities in rural parts of the South, and a lot more. So I would love for you all to join us in our work, disabled or not. and be in solidarity with the disabled community in this very difficult fight ahead. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Sebastian, and I'm the Director of Organizing at ruralorganizing.org. I'm from Iowa originally, and ruralorganizing.org is an organization with 600,000 people who have taken action, rural people who have taken action with us all across the country in every state and in those rural places where there just isn't any other organizing infrastructure. There's no organization, and those folks are kind of not connected to any institution or organizing effort. And Scott spoke really powerfully about how neoliberalism wiped out factory towns, and that was particularly true in rural areas. And even though every rural community is completely and totally different, it's a common thread that we see in a lot of rural America, that jobs leave, and with the jobs, union presence, and people leave, and community institutions fold up. And what's often left is what we call civic deserts, where there are no community organizations, and there aren't even really any places for people to just gather and like talk with one another. So what we've found in our work is that it's really, really hard to do community organizing if there isn't a community. And we need to actually, before we do a lot of political organizing, we need to do community building. And the best way to do that community building in places that are civic deserts and don't have that basic infrastructure is by just meeting people's most basic needs and bringing people together through culture and having fun. So when you're kind of starting from zero, you can try, and we have tried this many times, to drop a canvasser in and have them knock doors cold in these places where people aren't really even talking to each other. And it just does not work. And the thing that does work is happy hours and pancake breakfasts and making sure you have childcare available so parents can come too, and also doing food distribution and mutual aid protecting drug users. And this is also the way that our members who are in really, really tough territory, we're talking 80-20 Trump counties, 70-30 Trump counties. We're talking places where we did a survey of our membership, and 25% of them said that they had experienced political violence or threats of political violence. In this last election cycle, the most common thing, a very common thing I heard, is that people's political yard signs were being set on fire and shot with guns, right? And this is not regional specific. This was all over the country. This was everywhere. So these folks are doing very brave things and taking very brave risks. And the thing is, they also know that they need to reach out to their neighbors, and they need to kind of reach across to people who might not think exactly like them and that might not vote exactly like them. And the thing that they can come to some common purpose with is mutual aid. And I have to say, like, in this moment, rural places already have very little. Like, neoliberalism has like stripped them and extracted so much from rural places, and now what little they have is being taken away. You go to a rural place and what they have is a school, a library, and a post office. All of those things are being taken away, and the hospital is being taken away. So like, rural people are disproportionately on Medicaid, rural people are disproportionately on Social Security, but it's not just losing those benefits. If Medicaid gets cut, that hospital will not survive and will close down. If there's no hospital, people can't live in the town. So like, their very existence is at stake, and meeting people's basic needs for food, healthcare, et cetera, is going to be incredibly important. And it is the absolute necessary prerequisite for building community that is the foundation for doing the political work to build a better world in rural America and the rest of America.
I think we have Keith and then Aaron.
Oh, wow. Thank you all for having me on. And if I can be brought up and mentioned in a group like this, man, I'm already blessed and full. Wow. So project, my name is Keith Bullard. I'm the Deputy Director for the Union of Southern Service Workers. Projects of Survival is something that that we experience a lot. I mean, just in our day-to-day lives for our members, there's, I call them survival methods and tactics that they, operate in just to be able to get to work, just to be able to, like Sean said, to have childcare, while they're at work and things. And so projects of survival show up in many ways. One thing I would just quickly bring up that was very special and blessed to witness. It was during the, last year during the Hurricane Helene. Parts of North Carolina was completely, taken out. Bridges and roads were completely taken away. People were stuck in their home. My son, who was going to Western Carolina, he was stuck on campus and all of that. People couldn't get to them. People were without power. They were without, their homes were damaged. The thing is for our members, the fast food workers, they were in, their conditions was even dire because we're talking about people who were couch surfing, people who were already, houseless in itself, who were sleeping on someone else's couches or in a facility or in hotels that are now, unlivable. So what do? One of the things that was beautiful was in that moment, people didn't think about themselves. They didn't think about my own struggle. They knew their coworkers was going through the same struggles. And they began to come together to say, hey, okay, how do we get gas? Forming these networks that already exist, that they use for everyday life. These networks were the thing that brought them through, or the thing that was able to find ways to get food and medicine to someone's grandmother, find ways to get my son home. I was blessed by, being able to have people come together to, even when roads were taken out, to come together to get people back home. But one of the things that was very special was the community and how they came together all across North Carolina to begin supporting these workers, and in particularly at a retreat center, who, didn't talk about how much they were going to stay for that night or anything. They opened up their doors for families to come out there. And these are families with kids that, just seen their whole life taken away, but being able to escape from that devastation and all of that around them, to come to a place where they can, have running water, a bed to sleep in, have some sense of security. And these were people that necessarily didn't come together much, to talk much, to be around each other much. But in this moment, all they had, in a sense, was themselves. So they came together, they stayed at this retreat center, they cooked, they fellowshiped with each other. They became, but at the end of 3 weeks, they were auntie this, sister this, brother this. These other people, kids became their kids. I mean, the sense of community that broke past all forms of division, all forms that society would try to put on us. We were all in the same situation, and all they had was themselves to rely on. And those kids, the joy that was in their eyes because they were supported in that time was everything. They didn't see hopelessness or destruction. They saw what a community can do, what people can do when we come together. And at the end of the day, that's what these projects of survivors are, is to get people to come together, to step out of their own silo, to say that it's not just about me. I can't be all that I am until you are everything you can be, And so that's what these are. Projects of survival are community building. But one thing that I just wanted to make sure that I shared is that these projects exist already within our communities, And if we take the time to do like Sean said, knock on some doors, you'll find out where you can get a good meal. You can find out where you can get a pair of pants at, and you can find out, who can do your hair, all of these things, because these are the things that unfortunately low income communities that are stricken by poverty, these are the things that keep people alive, that keep people literally alive, like sharing insulin, other medication, things that we need to survive. And so I'm blessed to be on here with y'all. 2 minutes is hard for me not to just show love to all of y'all, but I'll just stop there. But blessed to be with you all.
Hey, everybody. Grateful to be here with you all. My name's Aaron. I work for the Episcopal Church. And so I just want to say a quick word about the role of churches in this work. I led a poor people's organization, Chaplains on the Harbor, in a rural red county in Washington State for about 8 years. And it was only through partnering with churches, mainly partnering with our local Episcopal diocese, that we were able, as an organization of people navigating constant crisis, to access building space, legal support, funding, media connections, and more. It was through the church that we were able to build this network of feeding programs, shelter, harm reduction, street and prison outreach, and then through those programs, develop the leadership of folks who were coming through for support. And as alongside those programs, right, running political education, developing a supportive employment program, and then over the course of their leadership development, right, with folks engaged in these day-to-day survival struggles, evolved to a point where we're able to successfully sue our local municipality twice in federal court with a pro bono constitutional lawyer who was representing us because of our connection to the church. And ultimately winning both of those lawsuits that had 10 unhoused people as plaintiffs. So winning these lawsuits, not just for them, but for pushing back against the policy violence that was happening on the ground in our community, and pushing back in defense of unhoused people's constitutional and treaty rights, but pushing back also from a moral perspective. So just every single piece of what we built was housed in a church, funded by a church, mostly piggybacked off the existing outreach of a church program, often run by the labor of church people, as church folks who paid for the books we sent to jail. Our bishop leveraged his position to get some of our incarcerated members furloughed in order to attend their families' funerals. And when vigilantes threatened to firebomb our church or our shelter or held us up at gunpoint, I sincerely believe it was our relationship with the church that actually slowed them down from escalating to further violence. And all of that is not just like nice things that churches can do for movement organizations. It's actually the work that churches are supposed to be doing. It's how churches are relevant in their communities and able to live in alignment with their own deepest moral values. So I just think those kinds of partnerships, especially in this moment, have the potential to be deeply mutual and also deeply powerful. Thank you all.